I stop them telling the story they want to tell and start telling the one the audience wants to hear. And when you do that, you show your audience why you matter to them.
All right. Welcome back to the Seven Figure Leap podcast. So I am joined today by a fellow storyteller, someone who I've grown to really respect. His name is Greg Logan, and he was introduced to me by Amber Vilhauer, who has introduced a few amazing guests to the show, and she's a former guest of Seven Figure Leap as well. Greg has a new book coming out. We're going to dive into that. What I'm really excited about, we're going to do our normal deep dive into his entrepreneurial journey and learn what he does and why he does it. But we're going to save some time at the end of today's episode for him to actually coach me with his brilliance and kind of unpack some new storytelling gold for Seven Figure Leap, the brand. So, Greg, I'm really appreciative of you, and I really thank you for being here. Please take a minute, introduce yourself, and give us a little insight into your own entrepreneurial journey here.
Sure. Thanks, Dustin. And it's great to be here, brand storyteller. So I love to tell stories, and hopefully the audience here can learn a few things. My journey, my background, I started life actually a very young age, 19. I started work as a copywriter at Leo Burnett Advertising.
Wow.
Huge agency. And it's all I really ever wanted to do was to work in advertising and create ads. And I loved it. And I did it for over 30 years. I was with Leo Burnett for 17 of those. And I left Burnett's to start my own agency. I sold that to a big global conglomerate. And I started having Groundhog Day. Like I'd worked on the biggest brands in the world. I'd won all the awards you could win in advertising. But I just was like, I've done this too long. Right at that time, I had written a couple of films, some feature-length films, which didn't get done because I'm not very good at writing feature-length films. But short films is a different kettle of fish. And I wrote a short film that lots of awards around the world and won the Crystal Bear at the Berlin Film Festival. And I kind of went, wow, this is fun. I like traveling the world collecting awards. But I'm not stupid enough. I had too many mortgages and I'm not stupid enough to become an unemployed, underpaid writer. I started creating reality TV shows. And within 3 months of leaving advertising and going into entertainment, I won the world's best new reality TV format at Cannes, at the big TV market. And I had a global deal with Warner Brothers. I got CAA as an agent in LA, and I was speaking to Ellen DeGeneres the next day. Like it was just crazy. And I moved from Sydney to LA, and I started creating reality TV shows. In 18 months, I'd sold 12 of them, which the industry said this is unheard of because you have no track record, but you've sold all these shows. Everyone was telling me I was doing well, but I was frustrated because I'd sell them, but they wouldn't happen. People would take the idea, look, I know some of them have happened, and I was like, I created that, but they changed it enough so they didn't have to pay me.
I was curious, this is an interjection, but there's an open loop that you've, with your good storytelling here, not being in the industry. So you sold a show, but it didn't get made. Can you just give us a little idea what that means? Like, what does it mean to create and sell a reality show?
Sure. So I'm not a producer. I'm not a production company. I'm an ideas person. And what the TV industry loved was my fresh ideas. And because I had 30 years of taking business problems and solving them creatively, I could look at what was successful and put a new twist on it. And so what I would do is I'd create the title, and I would do the sell and give it a structure. And this is pretty much an outline of what would happen. And then what they do is they purchase that idea that they then own it. And then with or without me, they develop it. And where the big money comes is when it is on network TV.
Okay.
And then you make the big money as the creator. So it's in their interest for you not to make that.
Yes. So it's not quite what Greg said, but it was a good inspiration for what we actually ended up doing.
Yeah. So while I was waiting for all these shows to be created, and I'm a compulsive creator. I mean, I would create 10 shows a day. Like I had so many ideas. The idea of brand storytelling became bigger and bigger and bigger. And I started going to conferences like South by Southwest, and all the talks were on why brands should become better storytellers. And they were really convincing, especially the ones from neuroscientists, how our brains are hardwired to love stories and why business and brands aren't tapping into this enough, and they should, because it's really powerful. And I left South by Southwest like everyone else, convinced why brands should become better storytellers. But I realized on the plane back to LA, no one told me how. And I just went, this is why I'm in America. This is why someone with an advertising and brand background went into entertainment, because I can put these two worlds together. And I went home and I was literally driving down Sunset Boulevard and I looked at the Hollywood sign and went, that's the how. Hollywood is the how. Because throughout history, Hollywood has been the most financially successful storytellers of all time. Those studios put a lot of money behind those films, so they need a return on investment. So they create a formula to make sure it succeeds. And I went, that is the how. The movie formulas is the how. Every movie is built on a formula, and that formula has built LA. It's the 7th biggest business center in the world. It's really successful. I mean, 100 years ago, it was desert, and the movies turned it into a huge, huge successful city. And the formulas work. And you may have heard of the hero's journey. A brand and a business doesn't work in a 2-hour cycle. And so I went, because I know a lot about brands, I was able to break down all the things a brand needs and a business needs to sell itself, but use the inspiration from movies and how do movies do that. And I've broken it down, all the tricks that movies use, and translated them for what a business needs. So I did that. I had no idea if it was going to work. And I was like, it seems like a good idea. But I tried it on some businesses and it was like, wow, this really works. And then after a year, my clients were having phenomenal success. I mean, I didn't believe them in the first place. I was like, really? Like that many million? Like, really? And after a while, I realized, of course it's working, because the big thing I do is I get them out of the way. I stop them telling the story they want to tell and start telling the one the audience wants to hear. And when you do that, you show your audience why you matter to them. And so anyway, I started Narrativity, which is my business, 8 years ago now. And I've just had best years of my whole life. In every way, it's been financially successful for me, but for my clients. And I've just had so much fun. Like, because every time I spend my time with my clients, we're talking about the movies. We're looking at their business through the lens of Hollywood, and they just love it. They just go, wow.
They probably just eat that up, because what's really cool about using that as the anchor point is not only it really works, because obviously, Hollywood's extremely successful with the formulas they use, but like everyone can relate to it because everyone's seen a movie, everyone has a favorite movie, everyone has a favorite hero's journey or storyline that they're familiar with. So, you talk to the right person about Star Wars or Jaws or, something from their childhood, and I'm sure they just light up. They're like, oh, I thought my business was boring. But when you say it like that, this is really exciting, right?
It is. And I give them examples of each thing I do. Is like, this is what the movies do. And they go, I get that. Now, this is why you need to do that. And they go, I get that. But you also see there's some film nerds in the sessions. Usually The Matrix or Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And they go, oh my God, this is just like Neo. And when he did that, and which is cool. It's really cool. But the thing for me is helping. And look, my clients are big. I work with some of the biggest companies in the world, but I also work for startups and entrepreneurs and small businesses. And that's the bit that excites me. Like, it's fine making rich companies richer, but when I help a small business, I transform their life. I mean, every couple of months I get a message from a client who goes, Greg, I cannot tell you how much you've changed my life. And I wouldn't be where I am without these stories. And, I just love that. It's really, really cool. So
it's kind of feel a bit like you found this intersection of all these weird talents and experiences, right? Like a copywriter and you loved advertising in the agency world, and you had an agency and left that. And then you got into long film and then short film and then reality shows. And then, at some point it's sort of this epiphany moment of like, oh, wait, there's this intersection of all these weird things that I know and I'm uniquely talented at. And now I get to go apply it and get like instant fulfillment, because it's like the light bulbs go off in the room. Then I get a text, 6 months later about the ROI that they've gotten. And I've had, a microcosm of that. I'm not as far along in my journey as you, but I can definitely relate to kind of feeling like, oh, I found my unique ability. Like I found like this thing, and it took me decades to work through it and do a lot of cool stuff along the way. But like now I'm in this spot where you said, the best 8 years of your life as you got to practice.
Yeah. And it's all of those things, Dustin, that, it's all my unique skill sets in one, but it's also something everyone in the world needs and every business in the world needs. So that has been amazing too, because, there's very talented accordion players, but not everyone needs an accordion player.
True. Fair.
Whether businesses realize it or not, when I tell them what I do, they go, you can see them nodding, going, we need that, and it's been wonderful.
Well, we're gonna get a taste of it, because Greg's he hasn't told me exactly what we're gonna do, but we're gonna do a little bit of this towards the end of the show, where we're gonna go through this formula or this paradigm of the Hollywood storytelling for Seven Figure Leap, and we're gonna see what comes out of that. And I'm really excited to do that. There's a couple other things I want to make sure that we touch on before we get to that point, Greg. One's going to be your book, and we'll talk a lot more about the book here in a moment. But one thing we love to talk about when we have an entrepreneur on, of course, is let them teach, and we want to hear their story. But I just like to know people's offers. I just love offers. It's something I love to just see what's out there and see what people are doing that's effective. And one thing that stuck with me from our first conversation, the uniqueness of your offer. It's very simple. It's very, I guess you could call it productized, in the sense that like, this is who I am. This is what you get. There's one menu item for the most part, right? And you said you work with some really big companies and some smaller companies, but can you just give us a summary of what your offer is and kind of how that works?
Yeah. Look, what I do is quite different on a number of levels. As a creative company and a consultancy, normally we would come in, and certainly all the years I was in agencies as well, is you come in and you take a brief and you come back weeks and months later and tell the client what you think they should do. I do something quite different. I spend a whole day with my clients and we create the stories together. And how I'm able to do that is by using the formulas I've stolen and tweaked and created from the movies. It gets us there very quick. And I use my skill as a writer to listen to them for the gold about their business. I know writing and storytelling better than them, but they know their business much better than me. And I don't move on till they say, oh my God, goosebumps. And I can see when they're excited. I can see when something's really connected. 3 days later, I present what we haven't created in the room together. They give me the inputs for, and I go away and write the longest stories for. So creating it with the clients is very different. But as you said, I've productized it, because in the normal consultancy, everyone's incentivized to take longer.
Right.
And their ideal is a retainer, that it never ends. But the thing about the normal consultancy is, especially if the client doesn't like it, someone like me has to do it again and again. And the longer that goes on, the more money I make. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I haven't nailed it, yet I'm getting more money.
Yeah, your incentives aren't aligned at all. Yeah.
And there's bill shock. There's a lot of bill shock with clients, and creatives can get around it because it's subjective, and you can create this magic. Oh no, it's all of this, and it's very expensive. I've productized it, and I have a set amount of outputs based on my 4 decades with brands going, this is all a brand needs to succeed, because agencies and consultancies are incentivized to create things that a brand doesn't actually need. But every business and brand loves talking about themselves. We all love talking about ourselves. So it's an easy sell to go, oh, we need to find out, this about what color are you? Oh, let me think. And you don't need that. So I've worked out all the things a brand needs. And within 4 days, it's done. I have a set amount of outputs. There's 11 different outputs, messages, stories, everything from your tagline to your backstory to your entire homepage. There's 11 things that you're guaranteed in those 4 days, and there's a set price. And if I have to make changes, and there's hardly ever any changes because the client has created it with me. If there's any changes, I'll just keep going until for that set price. So it's a set output, set time, set price. It's very different for creative and for a lot of creative. I mean, normally what I do in 4 days would take 4 months, probably, sometimes longer. So it's an efficient process. It's an engaging process, and it's a really effective one too.
I love it. Yeah, it's some really good lessons to take away from that. Whether no matter what business you're in, if you're in the business of serving, and most of our audience is coaches, consultants, some agency service providers, and it's kind of cliche at this point. Everyone's like, you need a productized service. You need to have like point to this menu, and that's the thing I want. And it's so hard to do well. And I think you're doing it at a high level, and it's premium, and you're obviously very uniquely talented at this, as we've already discussed. But I think one of the things that I heard in there that I'll take away is the co-creation aspect of it, right? Like, this is not asynchronously communicate or let Greg divine what you're thinking or what you mean. It's like you sit together in a room and hammer it out together. And so it's not only better and it's really true to their voice, but from your standpoint, like you said, there's hardly any revisions because they're like, well, I co-created this, like this, I have ownership in the same product. And I think that, way back in my engineering days, that was one of the things that I and the company I was with did really well is instead of going out and do a black box and then like, here's your engineering result, we were doing with like traffic engineering. It was, let's come to you and let's sit down together and I'll explain to you the technical stuff you need to understand, but like, let's co-create this. Let's make sure that when we walk away, as I facilitated something, you have as much ownership of it as I do. And that was effective, but it's also like, it removed a lot of the controversy, and it made the politicians very happy because they're like, they wore it with some pride because they helped create the thing. And I think you're doing that for your clients, which sounds amazing.
It removes so many barriers, and it just means everyone in the end is happy. And the other thing is, I mean, one, you obviously build a much stronger relationship. That day we spent together, they love me by the end of it. And I know as much about their business and their audience as they do. And so what happens is after that is they go, can you do this? Greg, you know us so well now. Can you do this? So it leads to other work. But the other thing is, from my years in advertising, you'd present back, and if the client loved it, great. But quite often they didn't, or there'd be a sticking point. And if one person in the room has an issue, everything gets undone.
Yeah.
And no one on their side defends me.
Yeah.
They go, oh, well, that's a good point. When we're creating stuff together, if someone has an idea or disagrees with something I've put up, it's a workshop. And someone else will defend what I've put up there. And there's a discussion, and that problem gets undone. Not the whole work, the problem gets undone. So it's such a great process.
I love that.
One thing I realized, Dustin, it was about 3 years after I'd been doing Narrativity, and I realized that I've never asked a client for a brief. And normally the contract is the consultant or the agency says, can you write a brief? No client ever wants to write a brief. And they go, I don't know what to put in it, so I'll put everything in it.
Yeah.
So then the agency gets and goes, oh my God, they want a lot, but it's now a contract because you've asked them to write it.
Yeah.
They actually don't know what they want. What they really want is what the audience wants, but they don't know what that is. So then you put back something that's full of everything and the client doesn't love it. They're not thinking it's because I've put everything in it, but it never gets to something great. Whereas I never ask my clients for a brief. I just come in and everyone will see this, how I work when I do it with you, Dustin. I will just ask you questions and you answer it. And that's how we create it. And never once in 8 years has a client afterwards said, Greg, we love the stories, but there's a few key proof points we normally say that you haven't included. Never once. Never once. Because they look at the result and go, this is going to be more powerful.
I think as a principle for the listeners and think about their own offers, I mean, there's obviously, you already said, there's other services that can follow, but there's basically on the front end, there's one way to work with Greg. It's got a clear schedule and deliverables. It happens quick. It's a co-creative process. It leverages his unique ability in a really efficient way. So he makes a lot of money. The company is super happy, and it creates a really long-term relationship because the nature of the way it's created and delivered develops a high level of trust, as part of the process. So that model specifically may not work for everyone listening, but I bet there's elements of that you could take into your own business and and apply. So especially if you're doing a bunch of custom work, writing proposals and making everything, a special snowflake, why don't you prescribe what your clients need first and what they need best, and then go offer that and be able to deliver it most efficiently. I think that's extremely powerful. Selfishly, I want to leave as much time as possible so you can work with me, but I do want to make sure we highlight the book. So you've got this new book. It'll come out shortly after this podcast publishes, I believe, Creating a Blockbuster Brand. So you're living the high life, man. You're like living in 3 cities. You got all these great clients. Yeah, he's holding the book up if you're seeing the video. Why write a book? Like what's the purpose behind the book? And of course, who it's for and what's it about and all those good things.
Why write a book is a good question. More and more businesses said to me, I'd love to do it. How much are you? And they're like, I totally get the value of that, but I can't afford it. I'd actually written every other form that exists: TV shows, movies, short film, magazine articles, newspaper articles, advertising. I've done them all, but I'd never written a book.
Which is funny because most people are like, I want to write something. It's going to be a book. And you're like, I'll write a feature film and a reality TV show before I write a book. That's funny.
Yeah. It's unusual. But I was like, I need to write a book. And the publisher was like, we've got ghostwriters who can write it for you. I'm like, I'm a writer. Like, I need to write it. But really, the reason I wrote the book was to really help as many businesses as possible. And so in this book, and if you're watching, that's my cover, Creating a Blockbuster Brand, Hollywood Storytelling Secrets for Your Business. What I was outlining before about the product I do with my clients, I break down each one of those 11 messages and brand tools. Each one has its own chapter. And so you can do it yourself. I just break it down and guide everyone through it to make it easy and clear as possible. Obviously, you're not going to have me writing it, which my clients, but for under $30, it's a much better value. I think that's why I wrote it. It's just so everyone could do it. And the people who have read it so far, I mean, it's launching June 24, but the people who have read it so far just go, wow, this is really helpful. It's not one of those business books that you read and you go, they could have said that in 5 pages.
I don't know how many times in the past year that I read books and I like them, and someone's like, what'd you think of that book? And I'm like, read the first third or read the first half and then throw it away, because it's just repeating the same stuff over and over. So that's refreshing that's the takeaway. Well, that's awesome. So, and we'll repeat this at the end, but blockbusterbrands.com is the place to go pre-order if you're listening to this right away, or if it's a little further down the line. Obviously, that's the place to pick up the book. Anything else we should talk about with the book?
Just on that, the book website just went live, and in terms of pre-ordering, there's some really cool bonuses, like seriously valuable bonuses that I don't even give my big clients. So there is an incentive to pre-order. That's for sure.
That's awesome. I'm looking at the page now. Obviously our listeners won't, but they can. They should go here while they're listening to you walk through the process that with me, and they should be buying this book so they can do this on their own, since they don't have the 7-Figure Leap podcast to invite you on and get to cheat and steal your wisdom. First of all, blockbusterbrands.com is a really great domain. So kudos to you for getting that one. That's awesome.
I know. And look, people just think you can't get cool URLs, but it's amazing actually how many are still there. Or even when I launched Narrativity, the .com was taken, but it wasn't live. And after, I don't know, 5 years, I was like, okay, it's time to approach them. And the guy wanted $90,000 for it.
Jeez, okay.
And I went, well, look, I have a really successful business that's been going for 5 years. You haven't even been trading. I'm fine without it. But, so I said, instead of 90,000, how about 9? And he went, okay. It wasn't even a negotiation.
That's awesome. Okay.
So now I have narrativity.com, and I don't know, it makes such a difference, like .biz or .com.
Does. And narrativity.com is also a place obviously people should check out. It's a really cool website. And obviously it gets deeper into some of the frameworks and things that you teach. But yeah, definitely get Creating a Blockbuster Brand, the book. And yeah, so we've got, let's say 10 minutes here, Greg, 10 or 15 minutes. And I'd let you set the stage. I am coming completely unscripted, unprepared. He just said, let me do some coaching with you at the end of the episode. And I said, that sounds fun. So we'll see you in 10 minutes if I think it was fun, but I think it will be. And I'm excited. So Greg, yeah, cue it up for us. Like, what are we going to do together? And how can people maybe follow along at home?
We're going to create your quest. So it's one of the things I've taken from the movies. And the movies work. Every movie works because a hero has a quest at the start of the film that we, the audience, agree with. And the reason we follow the hero's journey all the way to the end, and that quest is never furthest away than 10 minutes before the end of the film. But amazingly, it always gets achieved. But the reason we watch terrible films all the way to the end, and at the end go, why did I waste 3 hours of my life on that rubbish? Is because when we are actually not happy, our subconscious will not walk away until we see that quest achieved.
Yeah.
It is so powerful. So can you imagine if you can create a quest for your business that your audience wants to see achieved? It's so powerful. God love the movies. They've created a really simple formula. And that formula is, what do you do? Who do you do it for? And what value do you add? So if we look at the movies, Star Wars, the quest there is Luke what did he do? Save. Who for? The galaxy. And the value? Save the galaxy by defeating the evil empire. We, the audience, want to see that achieved. If you think about Barbie, what does she do? Restore. Who for? Girls. And the value she adds is restore girls' boundary between perfection and reality. And one of my favorite quests is Finding Nemo. What does Dad have to do? Find. Who for? Nemo. The value he adds to life is find Nemo.
It does not have to be a complex, ethereal.
If what you do and who you do it for is the value, you don't need to say anything else. So that's the formula I use. And I'll give you an example in a business. I worked with a funder for small to medium businesses in the UK, and they were number 3. And when I started working with them and said, we're going to do the quest, they went, Greg, we don't need to do that because we just spent 6 months working it out and we're pretty happy with it. And I said, great, what's your quest? And they said, to be the number 1 independent funder for small to medium businesses in the UK. And I said, that is terrible. And they were quite upset. What's wrong with wanting to be number 1? And I went, nothing is a business objective, but think of your audience. They're small business owners that need funding. They're in a world of financial pain. They can't sleep at night. And they come to you and you say you want to be number 1. You won't get number 1 by doing that. And they went, you're right. And so what do? Relieving. Who for? Business owners. And the value they add to their lives, relieving business owners from the pressures they're under. If you're a business owner who can't sleep at night and you come to them and say, we're going to relieve you from the pressures you're under, you want to see that achieved. You want to make that happen. And you know what happened? In 6 months, they went from number 3 to become the number 1 independent funder for small to medium business in the UK. Because that's what they said. They told their audience a quest that they wanted to see achieved. In that 6 months, the product didn't change. Their people didn't change. Their price didn't change. Their story did. That was it. That's the power of the quest. So we're going to do that with you now, Dustin, for 7-Figure Leap.
Perfect. And just as a disclaimer, I'm a verbal processor. And so I already know what's going to happen. You're going to ask me something and I'm going to talk for 3 minutes. You're going to be like, okay, here's 2 words to summarize what you just said. I'm sure that's pretty common with your clients.
It is, but you'll also see the power of this formula because I'm breaking it down so you can't. You go first. So even though the formula starts with what do you do, the most important thing you need to start with in any business is your audience.
Yeah.
So let's start with them. How would you best describe your audience? Is it business owners? Is it entrepreneurs? Is it experts? Is it ambitious entrepreneurs? Is it the ambitious? Like, what we need to pick one to put in the middle of the quest, but how would you best describe your audience?
Phrase I have grown endeared to is mission-driven experts. And so they are also entrepreneurs. And the mission-driven, the way I define it, is they're entrepreneurs. So they want to make more money. They want to have a bigger income. But a core driver for them is impact. And they have a story to tell behind why they want to have an impact in the world. So they're on a mission. They're experts in some niche. And they are also entrepreneurs who are applying that to a business.
Okay. So you would prefer mission-driven experts than entrepreneurs?
Mission-driven entrepreneurs or mission-driven experts. I kind of use them interchangeably. Probably entrepreneurs would be a better descriptor because they are business. They are people who are growing a business.
Just for everyone listening, as we go through this, I'm going to go, is it mission-driven experts or is it entrepreneurs? And the reason I'm just saying that is what you find in a quest is the simpler and broader you make it, the bigger it is.
Okay, then entrepreneurs, because my mind's wired to go niche, niche, niche.
Let's use entrepreneurs because it will be easier. But when we crack it, we'll then compare it and go see the difference.
Yeah.
For people listening, if you're unsure, just use people.
Okay. I like it
because it will work with people. But for instance, I did one with a university, and they did the Finding Nemo model, and it was furthering humanity. Like, what a cool quest.
Yeah.
But when you think about a university, that's what they do, and it encompasses every part of the university, but they chose humanity as their audience. I mean, it doesn't get bigger than that. But so the bigger you can make it, Star Wars is the galaxy and Barbie is girls, and so it's big. So let's use entrepreneurs. Now, again, we start with what do you do, but let's leave that to the end because it will naturally appear when we talk about what's the benefit of 7-figure leap to entrepreneurs. What's the value you add to entrepreneurs?
Yeah, not I feel pressure to be broad. I'm just going to talk, and you'll simplify.
No, you can talk.
Yeah, I think what's unique about what the value that we're adding to entrepreneurs is we allow them to grow their business by telling their story, by doing the things they already love to do, like teaching and coaching. And so we remove a lot of the pressure and the obstacles around marketing. So we try to make marketing fun. And the way that is typically fun for our clients is like, what if you could just show up and teach and coach and do the things you already do to love on people? And that was your marketing. And so we use podcast guesting as a specific channel for most of our clients to do that. But at its core, it's helping people use their story as the momentum to grow their business for their market.
So what comes to mind when you just say that is the quest is making entrepreneurs the marketing.
I like that. Making entrepreneurs the marketing. So if you kind of expand on that thought, it's marketing is not something that's out there and it's not this science. You have to go get a degree in it. You are your marketing and you do it right.
Yeah, you are the marketing. Like, because every business, no one wants to do marketing.
Yeah.
They don't really know how to do it. And the one thing they do know is it's really expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm really bad.
It never works. Yeah.
And, rat bags like Greg Logan are going to come in and take all my money and advise me on something that doesn't work. And, but if 7-figure leap can make me the marketing, wow. Like, do I want to see that happen? Yeah, I do. You can see the formula. What do I do? Making, who for? Entrepreneurs. And the value I add to life is make them the marketing. A little tip, the quest is your customer mission. So you always put the audience at the heart of it. Sometimes when you go out externally, you can remove the audience because you're talking to them. So for instance, the funder I told you before, relieving business owners from the pressure, that was their quest. I removed business owners from the external marketing and said, relieving you from the pressures you're under because you're having a one. So for instance, you could say when you're talking to me, for instance, you would go, I make you the marketing.
Yeah.
But on your website, you may go, because you're talking to maybe a third person or a broader market, we make entrepreneurs the marketing. Other ones that spring to mind from what you were saying is you share entrepreneurs' stories with the world. I think one thing you do, you didn't quite talk about it then, but it is related to making them the marketing, is you're delivering entrepreneurs a receptive audience. So a pain point of marketing is I'm wasting so much money because I'm just putting all this money out there and there might be 0.05% who actually are who I need to speak to or are receptive to me. But what you do is you deliver people who are already receptive to that person. So I think that's a really interesting quest that your audience wants to see. If I'm a business owner or entrepreneur,
Yeah.
if you can deliver me an audience that's receptive to me, wow, that's valuable.
I like that a lot.
And another way of saying that is, what do you do exposing? Who do you do it for? Entrepreneurs. And the value is exposing entrepreneurs to a world that wants them. So you can see it's another way of saying, I've just said the same thing 3 different ways. Make entrepreneurs the marketing, delivering entrepreneurs a receptive audience, and exposing entrepreneurs to a world that wants them.
Yeah.
They're all saying the same thing, but you can see there's a nuance different, and they're all cool.
Yeah.
Like,
And at first I'm like, well, making entrepreneurs the marketing, like that felt the most on the nose, because I think most people would point at me and be like, he helps you with marketing. In reality, I feel like I do a lot more than that. Like when people get into our world, we help them with their mindset and their self-confidence. We connect them to other entrepreneurs and we give them a lot of clarity. And so marketing sort of like the front end, but there's a deeper experience. And so the making entrepreneurs the marketing is really powerful. But then as you start talking about like exposing entrepreneurs to a world that wants them, that feels like a much like in my chest, like that's deep, like, because that's very multifaceted. Like they want you because you're deserving of being wanted, because you have an identity, because you stand for something, because you have clarity about who you are and who you want to serve, because you're on a mission that goes way beyond just marketing. And I think like that's
and
awesome.
it also says a world.
Yeah.
It's big. It's not just an audience, or a demographic. We're going to expose you to a world. How cool! It's very movie, like it's epic.
Yeah.
A hero in a world that, but a world that wants them. There's a world out there that wants me, and you're going to expose me to that. I want that to happen. I want to see that achieved. So, and I just think making you the marketing is actually a phrase you can use in your process. Like, you think marketing is this big scary thing, but what if it's you? What if you are the marketing?
Yeah, you are the marketing.
And we're going to expose.
That's a book title right there, right?
Yeah,
you are the marketing.
But we're going to expose you to a world that wants you. So the quest is cool, huh? Like it's
very cool.
Look how quickly we just did that. But because there's that structure in the formula, and look, everyone listening can do it now. What do you do? Who do you do it for? And the value you add to your life. Start with who you do it for, and then next step, go, what value do I add to their lives? Your natural instinct will be to use phrases you use again and again and again, and catchphrases, and then also talk about how you do it.
Yes. Yeah.
But in the movies, if you explain the whole plot, it'd be really boring. You want to hook people in. You just go, what's the benefit of what you do? And as you come up with things, you're going to say probably more rational things. Just each time you come up with one, go, but what's the benefit of that? And what's the benefit of that? And what's the benefit of that? And you can see I just said different things in different ways, but it was always, how does it get bigger? How does it get bigger?
Yeah. I think that was the power in this. That was the specific power in this framework, as someone who talks about marketing all the time and, has the story brand background and all that stuff. Like a lot of the energy behind marketing in general is specificity. So it's like, no, like the problem you solve, that's not specific enough. Go deeper, go deeper, go deeper. And you're like, trying to get very granular and specific, because that is easy to market and identify and refer people to. But I think the power of what you just went through with me, and where I'm getting a lot of energy from it, is it made it much more broad, which made it much more universal, powerful. I can start to see like literally a movie start to form in my mind of like exposing an entrepreneur to a world that wants them. Like you kind of get this idea of like Slumdog Millionaire or something. You get this like hidden talent, this genius, and he has no exposure, and he thinks he's really weird and no one would ever want to know him. And then as he goes on this journey, he finds this guide who helps him, and like eventually he's on the world stage winning a Nobel Peace Prize because the world wants what he had to offer. You know what I mean? Like that's, you can kind of get this whole dramatic sense about that, because it's a much bigger quest and not a specific narrative application. We're not talking about a short story here with a lot of specificity. I love it. It's awesome.
And it's got to be big. A quest has to be big. And because that's what's going to excite people. And I can just see how excited you are because
Yeah.
you've just seen your business through a different lens.
Yeah.
But the lens you've seen it through is what the world can see it through.
Yeah.
And when the world sees themselves through that, actually, let's try exposing entrepreneurs to a world that wants them, to exposing mission-driven experts to a world that wants them.
Yeah.
What do you think? I feel like mission-driven experts is its own thing.
Yeah.
Like it's an idea in itself. And when you put it in to the sentence, it gets in the way
Yes,
of
I agree.
just,
Yeah, I feel like they're even like podcast guesting is like the vehicle that we often use, but a lot of times I feel limited by that, right? It's like, oh, he's the podcast guesting guy. And podcast guesting is a special skill set and talent, is something we can help people with, and it's an offer. But the mission we're on is way bigger. Like to me, it's a mission of evangelization. It's a mission of getting people's impact multiplied in the world. And like my seat is one of like leading the leaders, guiding the guides. Like every person I can empower who's got a mission has got something to share with the world, and whatever their unique skill set is, I can be an amplifier to that and help them multiply that, out into the world. And podcast guesting is a cool vehicle for that. But like that's why like writing a book about podcast guesting is compelling as like a field guide, but writing the book that Dustin's legacy stands behind has got to be something bigger. And I think this idea of all the things that you said to me create a foundation for the much bigger thought leadership platform I'd want to stand on over time, and that I want my company to be known for. So it's definitely powerful. I love it.
Great.
Awesome. Well, if you want some of that in your life, you should definitely get a hold of Greg. But at a minimum, you got to get his book, right? So the book will walk people through this process and help them develop the 11 sort of deliverables that come out of this way of thinking. Is that fair?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Greg Logan, you're a gift to me. And let's see, the book, blockbusterbrands.com is where you'll go to find it. The book is called Creating a Blockbuster Brand. And if you want to go do this for yourself with Greg kind of over your shoulder asynchronously, man, what a cool thing to do. Any closing thoughts, or is that the next best step for people listening if they want to go deeper with you?
Yeah. Go to narrativity.com or blockbusterbrands.com for the book. This is why I love what I do. Just your reaction now is it just makes me so happy. And look how simple it is. Like people get so caught up in process and all that rubbish that just gets in the way of this great stuff. And business owners are so close to it. They can't see what makes them great. My toughest client is me. Like I redo my things a million times because I'm too close to it.
Same thing.
But everyone is, and everyone has an amazing story. They just haven't found it yet.
Well, go find yours. So anyway, I hope everyone is as inspired by this process as I am, inspired by your story and your transparency, and just to show up here and give your time and be a gift to my audience. Thank you so much. Thank you for what you just did for me. I will definitely utilize it and take it deeper, and I'll definitely be pre-ordering the book and being your biggest fan. So blockbusterbrands.com, narrativity.com. Greg Logan, thanks for being here, and thanks for being a new friend.
My pleasure.